Cheers.
Thanks for hanging. Thanks for filming.
Hey.
See
May
y'all
it
soon.
always be.
I cannot believe Kenny just beat us in a chug. This man doesn't even drink beer.
We are in Brooklyn, New York. We are on our way to Other Half Brewing, and I am stoked to talk to co-founder Andrew Berman. They were not the first brewery in New York, but they changed the game. Without Other Half, East Coast brewing scene would not be what it is today. Mr. Berman.
Hey, Kenny, what's going on, man? How you doing?
See you.
Good to see you too, man. You ready for the tour?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's go. You know, this is where it all starts. We get our grain from down the street. We have about a 6,000 square foot warehouse.
But you didn't start with a 6,000 foot warehouse down the street.
No, we started with just this. It's about 3,800 square foot warehouse that we found on Craigslist. They're on their second brew of the day. They just grained out. They just milled in here, which is very, very full. So I think this is a triple IPA.
How many beers has Other Half made over the course of your career?
I believe it's 380 something.
Total.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I think Mylar Bags is one of my favorites because it's standard. It's really, it has this like fruitful, like maraschino cherry sort of flavor to it that I love. So we actually just upgraded our canning line. We went from a 4-head to a 5-head filler that cut our time down by about 20%. We're actually wearing out equipment that we originally bought, which is sort of, you're like, I thought this is my forever canning line. Like I thought this is my forever brew house. But we're upgrading and constantly improving stuff. You know, we're really trying to push what a label can be and what a name can be and sort of what people are looking for out of it. You know, we want something that grabs people, but also sort of cheeky in its own way. You want to try any beers?
I wouldn't say no.
All right, let's go try it out.
This is the first stop on our trip, and I wanted this to be the first stop because when I think about the craft beer scene on the East Coast, one of the names I think about is Other Half. When you were starting out, did you think this is what it would be?
Oh no! Every day we're like surprised as to what it is. I think we started off with a couple guys, you know, wanting to make some good beers. It's a work in progress, but we're really proud of where we've come.
Are there ever times where you're at a festival or in the tap room or even in public where you see somebody drinking an Other Half beer?
My daughter had off school and she's 4, so we took her to the Natural History Museum. And then on the way out, you know, the guard is like, oh man, I love that beer. You know, that's one of the most rewarding things. And someone you have no idea, you'll be wearing a sweatshirt, a hat or something. They're like, oh, I love that.
What do you think it is that you guys did that made people look up to you?
We got in right before that wave happened, which was really helpful. But we've had a great product, we have great branding, you know, and I think we always had that sort of like edgy look to us and feel that, you know, we were a warehouse in Brooklyn and you couldn't really figure out where we were. And it's hard to replicate that, and it's hard to make sure that we keep that momentum going. And that's what we really try.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want the playbook, right? But it was a time and a place, you know?
Exactly. And it was a time and place, and I think it's also, whether you're a new brewery or old brewery, it's all about being who you are and doing it well. I think, you know, what made us really special is that when we say there's Citra in that beer, there is Citra in that beer, or there's Mosaic or whatever.
So from a small warehouse in Brooklyn to how many locations now?
Yeah. 7, and I think that's it for right now, so I'm happy about that.
You know you're gonna eat those words.
I'm probably someday.
Let's go to Finback. Basil Lee, we meet again.
Kenneth, great to see you. Tom Basil, of course, Basil Lee. We're at our Finback Brooklyn studio.
Basil and his business partner Kevin Stafford run Finback Brewery, which originally opened in Glendale, Queens, but recently launched a new, more experimental brewery in Gowanus, Brooklyn.
It's our Brooklyn tap room. We call it our studio because it's our kind of creative space.
Where does the name Finback come from?
It's kind of a little bit of a odd, sad story. I'd say while we were trying to open the brewery, we were feeling a little bit down in that we couldn't find a space, and it was just ended up stretching the project, getting longer and longer, and we thought it wouldn't happen. And then there was a finback whale that was beached at Breezy Point, and we felt like a beached whale, and that was around the time when we found our space in Queens, and so we kind of adopted that name. But originally the idea was we wanted something a little bit nautical to kind of reference our New England background, so that's why we wanted a whale name anyways, and so it kind of worked out.
How did you get into the beer industry?
I think it came very much from a passion for trying new beers. You know, way back when, 2013, 2012, when we first kind of had the idea, there weren't many breweries in New York City, new breweries at least, kind of new craft breweries in New York City. For us, it was just trying to bring some of the things that we love to visit and travel to do, that kind of beer scene, bring that here. So we've got, you know, a tight little production space in Brooklyn.
Wow.
It's interesting. In the beginning, when we opened, we asked the brew team, okay, what do you guys want to brew as our first beer in Brooklyn? And we did a little competition. We asked everyone to come up with a recipe, and a team of people kind of chose what they thought was best. Everything we got was, you know, an English mild, a saison, you know, really drinking beers. And so it actually evolved where all the beers we've done here have been beers like that. And so we've really defined the program here to be brewers' beers.
So you have a production facility in Glendale.
Yeah.
And then this is really a place where you can kind of experiment and do smaller batches and really play.
Yep, that's right.
You started in beer, but I know you have since branched out into adjacent categories.
We quickly realized that, you know, although we love making beer, the underlying passion was kind of a creativity in ingredients and kind of putting things together, and ultimately, you know, kind of in this alcohol package, you know, which kind of is a good vehicle for flavor, I think. We've got the distilling operation, so we can do really clean stripping runs. We've got a gin basket. So a lot of fun in terms of like what we can do. And it's great to have the kind of action back here translate into the taproom just over there.
How many people live in this city?
I don't know, maybe almost 8 million.
Do you find yourself running into the same people often?
I do. It's a very big city, but you're right. It feels like a very small community, especially in the beer world. It's a great community in that I think they love seeing each other. And I think that's actually very much what the craft beer scene was defined by. I think in the beginning, you know, people waited in lines for cans, but a lot of that was because they wanted to be together with each other in that scene, in line, and going to their favorite breweries.
The beer.
Yeah.
It's why we're here.
This is Reaching Skyward. It is a mixed ferm beer fermented in barrel in wood. Probably spent about maybe 10 months a year in wood, and then transferred to stainless and finished with peaches, and then bottle fermented.
What is mixed fermentation?
Mixed ferm really is just a big phrase for beers that are fermented, finished with like bacteria and other things, so not just kind of yeast. For example, we have a saison. One of our brewers essentially grew up the yeast off of some Brooklyn flowers that he had picked, and we kind of try to harvest the bacteria off of that and create a mixed ferm beer with.
Should we try it?
We should. Cheers.
To you. From living in New York, I know there's a community for everyone. And Lia Brewing, founded by a Navy veteran and an MBA strategist, caters to a very specific demographic of drinker. There's a quote on your website. After years of browsing beer aisles and visiting breweries, they found that despite the booming craft beer market, no breweries were actively trying to speak to customers like them.
Customers like us being non-beer nerds, non-beer bros. We believed that there were women and other non-beer drinkers out there who think all beers are super bitter or beer pong beer, so didn't have fruit-forward flavors. And so we wanted to really lean into that so we could start to tap into those people who consider themselves just wine drinkers or cocktail lovers. You translate that into like the more day-to-day activity where if you're going to the grocery store, can you pick up a 4-pack of Arrogant Bastard for me? Like, what? That branding, if you're new to craft beer, you're not gonna reach for that.
In order to sell our beer, we had to go to the tastemakers of New York City, the craft beer bar buyers, the highly educated in craft beer male consumer, the people who are making the purchasing decisions. And they had to fall in love with our beer too. So it was balancing the two sides of that and making a product that still has universal appeal, but that can at least authentically speak to someone who doesn't know their way around a craft beer bottle shop.
So everything was very fruit forward It's been awesome to be able to introduce craft beer to all these new consumers in the market. We were very intentional about making our packaging gender neutral but playful, maybe leaning slightly feminine to capture that audience that currently doesn't drink beer at the same rate as men do.
What are you known for here?
You know, when we realized we wanted to start a beer company together, our first idea was let's just brew one beer, contract brew it, and get it on the shelves of Whole Foods. It's gonna be the best pale ale you've ever had in your life. Once we realized that it's really hard to make a successful business just contract brewing, that the taproom is the most profitable part of our industry, we started building a business plan, and we're very focused on hospitality. So breweries historically, have leaned on the quality of their beer, and we realized it's a competitive market. We need to be more than just great quality beer. Here in Williamsburg and here in New York City, there are so many experiences that compete with visiting a brewery, and we really wanted to step up what that means for us. And I think that openness leads to a lot of the people who we think are our target customers feeling comfortable here. The whole spectrum, not just what you think of when you think of a typical craft beer audience.
Talk to me about the Brooklyn craft beer scene.
New York City as a whole is kind of behind the craft beer boom that's already swept the West Coast. For every 100,000 residents in the US, there's 2.2 breweries across the country. In New York City, it's less than 0.3. So there is still so much room for craft beer in New York City. For us, our mission of expanding the craft beer consumer base, ideally, we're trying to create more customers. So I think there's still a huge learning curve to be had across Brooklyn and New York City with craft beer, which is why we felt so comfortable jumping into what seems like an already crowded industry, but actually not so much here in New York City.
On that note,
Cheers! Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
You too.
Thanks, guys. You too. We are here at Tørst, which is commonly regarded as one of the best beer bars in the country. This is especially meaningful to me because somebody that used to work for me is now working here. Let's go meet her. Can you tell us who you are and what you do here?
My name is Olivia Hurley. I'm a bartender here at Tørst, a spiritual guide, really.
I actually like spiritual guide better than bartender because I feel like what you do here at Tørst is more than the average bartender.
In some ways, it's the easiest bartending job there is because physically you're just pouring a beer most of the time.
Sure.
But here, there's so much more dialogue with the guest about how to get them what they're looking for. And you're dealing with various levels of understanding about what beer is. Some people come in and they know exactly what they want right away. And then for people who don't even think they like beer, there's an opportunity. Knock people's socks off with that, who think that they don't like beer, is very exciting and fulfilling to have someone say, like, having the time of my life at Tørst, thanks to Olivia, the bartender.
I'm coming in here, I know a ton about beer.
Okay.
And I want to try the weirdest, wackiest thing that I'm probably not gonna have the chance to try again.
Sure.
Can you guide me?
Absolutely. We always have something on draft that will scratch that itch. But sometimes people who really want to be blown away want the drama of a bottle. We have so many amazing bottles, like from Ale Apothecary, one of your favorites, who just nail the whole terroir side of what beer can be. They're foraging stuff in Oregon and they're putting it in the beer. And when else are you going to have a beer like that? You probably won't.
Here at Tørst, you have a profile of a beer that would fit every palate. So what's interesting isn't the actual flavors necessarily, although that could be really interesting, but,
Sure.
but what goes into it and sort of the story behind it.
And oftentimes people really don't know what they want. And if you can tie a story to it, it gets them more excited. The conversation of place gets me really excited.
What do you think people are looking for when they come in here?
I don't know. I think people are just looking to try something new oftentimes. But you also get a different customer every day of the week here, it feels like. The reputation that Tørst has always had was this sort of elevated beer experience. But now I like to think that we're a lot more approachable. Being here, I have an opportunity to really tell the story in a way that I didn't always have the opportunity to. So it's cool. I feel like I'm doing my small part to like spread the gospel of what has kept beer interesting to me.
You worked at a work hard, play hard startup run by yours truly.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part?
I reflect on this to this day because I think it's sort of helped to guide me into trying other new things, because I think my favorite part was meeting so many awesome people. You just met so many characters, but also like the beer community in general. Like I really enjoyed being a part of that.
Can you speak to the friends you've made in this community?
In a city like New York that is so expansive, the beer community here feels really small. It really does feel like you're getting to know people for who they are. There's so much room there for a real connection, and not many industries are like that, especially professional relationships. And I had so much fun with you and the hop culture team, like the glory days, you know?
Glory days.
Yeah. You were my former boss at Hop Culture.
I totally was.
Yeah, my first real big-ish kid job in New York.
I have watched you come up in this industry, and now I would like you here at Tørst to be my spiritual guide. This is surreal. The student has become the master.
We don't like to give tasting notes here, actually, because we like people to experience it for themselves and really have that dialogue that I was talking about before.
I love that.
Yeah, I love this one. I think it is super flavorful while also being crisp and refreshing, which is often what I'm reaching for these days.
What do we say?
May it always be, Kenny.
May it always be.
Cheers.
Cheers. Brooklyn is massive, but if you're part of a tight-knit beer community, even the largest city in the country can feel like a small neighborhood. I want to stay because there is so much here, but I've only got one liver. So until next time, my friends, cheers.